الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. We move on to a new chapter, باب حق الجار والوصية به والوصية به, which is the chapter on the rights of the neighbors or the neighbor and the advice to be good to the neighbor. قال الله تعالى واعبدوا الله ولا تشركوا به شيئا وبالوالدين إحسانا وبذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين والجار ذي القربى والجار الجنوب والصاحب بالجنب وابن السبيل وما ملكت أيمانكم. So, Imam al-Nawawi here first mentions a verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and worship Allah alone and do not associate anything with Him, and be good to your parents, and also be good to their relatives and to the orphans and to the poor and to the neighbor that is connected to you through blood and the neighbor that is not connected to you, and the companion in the travel and the traveler and whoever is like under your care or in terms of like people that you own, which is slaves or whatever. First hadith عن ابن عمر وعائشة رضي الله عنهما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورثه متفق عليه. This hadith is collected by Bukhari and Muslim, narrated from Ibn Umar and Aisha رضي الله عنهما, that Allah's Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم says that Jibreel kept reminding me to take care of the neighbor until I thought that he was going to give him a share of my inheritance. So the intent of the hadith is that Jibreel kept stressing the fact of the rights of the neighbor to the point that the Prophet ﷺ got the impression that maybe Allah would even include him among the heirs, those who would inherit you, that Allah would give them a share of your inheritance. And that shows that Islam recommends that we are good to our parents and we connect to our parents just as good, almost as good as we do that to our own family members. And not only family members, like talking about children, dependents. So that shows as well, and we will come to other hadith, by the way, that connect Iman to, how good we actually deal with our parents, with our neighbors. I keep saying parents, but it's neighbors. Okay, neighbors, we're talking about neighbors. So what's the point in Islam? Yes, we are supposed to be good to our neighbors, and this is not a passive approach, only that when we see them, we greet them. No, we are supposed to take a proactive approach, maybe check on them, maybe visit them, maybe extend help to them, any way that is possible. But again, we have to observe the norms, which is called al-urf, because sometimes, like say in our countries back home, being good to your neighbor is actually, could be considered here, whatever you do there and it's considered to be good might be quite intrusive here. So in some countries it's okay that you actually go to your neighbor and you ask them for food, right? Or you ask them for bread. People used to do that often in the past. Mother didn't have enough bread at home, she would send one of her children, go and ask the neighbors if they have extra bread. If you do that today, it would be quite offensive maybe, right? Again, like things like that. So there are things you do that are context dependent, depend on the locality. So again, don't do something that will bring attention to you or maybe cause you trouble. Maybe your neighbor will be suspicious of you, right? So even when you extend help, be smart, be wise. You should understand, the culture you are operating within. But still, that doesn't mean you will remain passive, or you just do what people generally do here to the neighbors, which is quite little, or almost like non-existent. Most people don't know who their neighbors are, or they don't even care. A couple of days ago, I saw this caught my attention. One brother in the US, I think he's an Indian brother. His name is Sabir, and he speaks, in interfaith, and he speaks about Islam. And when it was the winter storm, I think it was 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. Again, it was also there in the Midwest in the US. So he actually wrote down a piece of paper. It says he realized most of the people in his neighborhood are seniors. So he figured out the weather conditions were really harsh. So he wrote that small note and he made 70 copies of it, and he just put it, through or under the door of some of his neighbors, the closest ones around. And he put his number. He said, if you need any help with groceries, with shoveling snow, whatever it is, shoveling the snow, just let us know. We'll help you out. And he received a few calls actually. And like a few weeks later, he was on the news. Like they brought him on the news. But the thing is, that's part and parcel of what Islam really recommends. You don't have to necessarily go and shovel the snow for them or buy them the groceries. You can figure out your own way. Maybe the way you are able to help without putting yourself under hardship or whatever. So it's just the notion. The whole notion is definitely in line with the instructions of Islam. And this is one way as well that we practice Islam. Because oftentimes in this busy world, we have limited our practice of Islam to only the acts of worship. That's not bad, that's actually great, but that's not enough. Islam is a more complete way of life, so it's good if we can incorporate the other social acts of worship and the acts of kindness. Generally Islam calls for. This is something really good, and I think it also plays a good role as well in helping the Muslims be an acceptable part of the society, because there is a wave of hate. There is in the media and other areas. There's people who are trying to paint the Muslims as bad people, as selfish people, come here to sort of abuse the system and take advantage and so on and so forth. So at least let's let people see part of what Islam really calls for in practical terms. So hopefully this is something that we can act upon. Jazakumullah khairan.